Oh, hey, what's up, shitheads? Welcome back to the channel. Well, today is Christmas Day, and you know what? I don't have custody of my kids anymore, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and do a range test on the Altis Sigma. And the Talaria man's going to come along because he has a brand new 76-volt battery on his bike as well. And you know what? We're just going to go see how far we can get on our bike. So if you're not doing anything, maybe you could come along for the ride. Anyways, guys, we're going to get going. Come on. I literally just topped this battery off, 100% charge. I am using the red race key, so I'll be using all the modes. I'm going to be riding like I normally ride, so hopefully, my goal is to get 40 miles today, and if we do, I'll call that a success. So let's start off in sport. And I now have Shinko 241s on here. Ooh, feels nice and smooth. Might affect the range a little bit, maybe a mile or two, but I wouldn't expect anything drastic. I'm really hoping we can get 40 miles out of this. I feel like 40 miles is kind of the gold standard, and I think most people will be okay with that amount of range. He has a 50-something amp hour battery in his bike now, so he's probably going to be able to go for an absolutely absurd amount of range. He's going to outlast me for sure. When I was using the NFC, I realized something was different without a key in the bike. If you have a key, the key's pretty much stuck in your ignition, so you know where that key's gonna be. When you use the NFC, you could drop it out of your pocket. You know, you could potentially lose your NFC and then all of a sudden your bike's a boat anchor. You know, I think the NFCs are neat and all, but I do kind of prefer having a keyed ignition. It's just, you know, for a bike, I feel like at least that way you know you're not gonna be losing stuff. This bike is something else. Right away, the 241s, when I hit the brakes, this thing just grabs much better on asphalt than it did with the stock tires. Anyways, we're kind of just going to be playing this ride by ear, and we'll see how far we get. I'm showing 50 on the speedometer, 42 up there, so I know everyone else has done the speed test on these things. Seems like the speedometer is pretty inaccurate on here. Maybe it'd be nice if there's a setting we could change in the computer to get it more accurate, but you know, time will tell. And another thing, look, we're saying, you know, 44 miles an hour on here. This thing cruises around at 40 really easily. We're showing 25 to 30 amps, just cruising at 37 miles an hour. So I'm hoping with the higher voltage of this, the higher efficiency, we'll easily get 40 miles. But granted, guys, if you're pulling full power out of here, 22 kilowatts on a battery that has, what, 3360 watt hours, whatever 98 times 35 is, 22,000 watts is going to burn through that in like 5-10 minutes if you kept it at full throttle. So keep that in mind. Range will vary big time depending on how you ride. I don't know about you. My truck can do 105 miles an hour. It's speed limited. I've literally done it once. So just because this thing can do 80 or 75 miles an hour doesn't mean you're going to be cruising around at that speed all the time. As a matter of fact, I don't like going that fast most of the time. I like just cruising around. You know, I wanted to clear something up too. Like when I first got on the bike, I was like, wow, this bike feels quieter than the Talaria or the E-Ride. But now when reviewing the footage and also like, yeah, cruising around like this bike is not that loud. But when you start like really getting on the power with this bike, there's a noticeable hum. This bike gets pretty loud, so I take that back, guys. I recant my statement from my initial video and have to say this bike is not the quietest of the bunch, that's for sure. A few miles in now and we're at 96%. Can we hit 40? Guys, you're just gonna have to stay tuned and find out. And switch over to, let's say, normal mode for a little bit. What do you guys say? You can see the backdrop, there's Mount Diablo in the background. I've ridden bikes up to the top of that. As a matter of fact, we'll take this up there someday. And we'll catch up with you in a little bit when there's something to update you. We're saying 7 miles in. The speedometer on this thing is really inaccurate. I don't know exactly how much yet, so at some point hopefully we can calibrate it, but we're showing 86% on the battery. I've been riding the majority in normal mode so far because we're just cruising along on these bike trails. I'm not trying to go too fast, but at some point we'll give it a full pull at least once. I'll give it an official check-in when this says 10 miles, and I'll see what my Strava says. And my friend here, the Talaria man's also running his Strava as well, so we can kind of get a general idea of how fast we're actually going. So typically I review e-bikes, fat tire e-bikes, all sorts of e-bikes, and most people in the e-bike world are very blind to what's going on in the E-Moto world. It's like everything's a Suron, right? But this is the first one where people are like, hey, you guys hear about that Altis Sigma? So whatever it is with their marketing or however, they got the word out, and this one has definitely crossed over where a lot of normies know about this bike, and it piqued their interest. As of now, at least, you know, I know not many people have these yet, so I feel pretty exclusive riding around on the Altis Sigma. So we're just snaking around through all these bike trails through my town that I've been riding bikes heavily since 2020. You know, something happened in 2020, I forget what it was, but it kind of like changed the whole world. So I said I bought an e-bike right before the rush, and I was riding bikes around constantly. The gym was closed, so I had like nothing, you know, we didn't have anything else to do, so I was just riding my bike every day. I put like 2,500 miles on my bike that year after being fairly inactive on bikes for years before that. So COVID definitely got me into biking, but the sad side effect from that is I've gone over every single bike trail in this whole entire area. So now it's like, yes, I can like find all the little back routes everywhere. I can find all the little back roads here and there and get from one place to the other. But the bad thing is I've gone on these trails so many times. Now I find myself having to pack up into a car and go somewhere if I want to try a new trail. Do you guys want to know more about that, or can we continue with the ride? I'll check in with you at 10 miles. Update time, we're showing 10 miles on the odometer or the tripometer here, which is nowhere near 10 miles because Talaria man, he's calibrated his speedometer. He's showing 8.8 miles. Strava is showing 8.8 miles. So this speedometer is more than 10 miles and more than 10% off. This thing is pretty inaccurate. But anyways, I just wanted to point out, since this says I will be updating as this thing says 10 in 10-mile increments, but it's, you know, not going to really match up to Strava. Well, I was going to use my draggy to get the top speed here, but the battery's dead on it, so let's see. Man. Showing 60. I only got 68 on the speedometer there. Getting much past 69. Yeah, I got 70 there for a second, but that's about it. He doesn't like being out here because last week, a couple weeks ago, he got a flat, and I had to go get my truck and come back and pick him up. And while he was waiting, Tesla came around this corner, hit something, had a tire blowout, and was riding down the wrong side of the road towards him, and he feared for his life. So I live in Antioch, and I'm used to these ridiculous things happening all the time, but you know, he sees one little high-speed chase and he's spooked for his life. I'm gonna be right around in sport mode for a little bit here. I have to say I was expecting it to get faster than that. It seemed like it didn't want to go much past 68. It creeped up to 70, but you know, we'll see. A little bit cold out today, but I was expecting, because I'm hearing other people saying they're hitting 80. He said he hit a max of 66 miles an hour on his speedometer. So if this thing's about 10% off and it showed 70 miles an hour, I was probably going about 63 miles an hour. Which is still fast, but it's not as fast as I was expecting to at least get an actual real 70 miles an hour on this bike. So we'll see. I'm showing 12.7 miles on this, but you know, who knows how accurate that is. We'll check our Strava in just a little bit. Oh, should use my reverse. Oh, wow. I think this thing has a straight cut gear noise is what you're hearing. So the gearbox is just making a lot of noise when this thing's doing a full rip. So I personally don't mind it. I don't notice it while I'm on the bike. It sounds cool. It gives you some like feedback, you know, when they give you the throttle, it's like you can tell how much throttle you're giving it based on the noise you're hearing, which is cool. It's one of the things with some electric motors are so quiet you don't hear anything when you're riding them. So it kind of takes away from the whole experience. So this makes a cool noise that rewards you for using the throttle. Okay guys, we're at tripometer 15 miles an hour on here. I reset the gear ratio in the computer to 8.3 from 7.4. I'm hoping that corrects the speedometer. It kind of feels like it is, because when I pace him, it seems like we're more about the same speed now. So I'm restarting my Strava, and we'll check in with you periodically. But you know guys, that's when you do these things, you gotta live and learn. So hoping this is more accurate, because this speedometer is pretty inaccurate from, I mean, it's like 10% off when you're riding around, which is pretty bad. So maybe that gear ratio is more accurate with the MX version or something. I don't, look, I'm not a scientist. I'm not Bill and I, the science guy. I don't have the answers for you. I'm just a guy out there navigating the world on his Altis Sigma, trying to figure things out just like you are. But we're showing 65%, 15.1 miles. We are now in Pittsburgh, California. The girth of this bike, guys, you know, okay, throw in your jokes. The girth is definitely noticeable. This is definitely feels wider than those other bikes I ride, for sure. So I'm finding myself riding around in normal mode most of the time. Kind of wishing Eco was faster. I really like Eco on the E-Ride and the MX5. Top speed of 28, you can kind of just like get on cruise control and ride around. So now I'm sitting all the way at the front of the battery, or the front of the seat. Yeah, it's not too bad. Definitely liking this full seat on this bike. It's comfortable too. I'm not finding myself any discomfort at all whatsoever. Guys, here's update time. We're showing 48%. Now we're showing 20.6 miles. So keep in mind, I reset Strava at 15. Now my Strava is saying 5.56 distance, 20.6. So I feel like this is now very, very close. At this rate, probably not going to get 40 miles, but you know, there's one way to find out, guys. We're going to keep going. Time powered. That's interesting. So I just changed it from showing the tripometer here. Now it's showing the power meter. So I don't know how well I'm going to be able to see that while I'm riding. It's actually kind of funny though. When you use the light on here though, it actually starts showing you how much power the light's drawing. This is the first e-bike I've seen where any of the stuff you're actually drawing off the battery besides the motor actually shows. So this light on high pulls about 20 watts. Looks like it pulls about 20, 30 watts. Interesting, right guys? That's funny. So we're going up a super steep hill right now. Not a hill you have a fun time riding a bike up, that's for sure. Of course, these things have no problem. Every E-Moto has no problem with hills like this. Looks like normal mode maxes out about 36, pulling about 8 kilowatts right now. So normal mode maxes out at 8 kilowatts. There's your answer, fellas. Eco mode maxes out at 1.6 kilowatts. Sport mode maxes out at. Sport mode says 13.3 kilowatts. Oh, here goes race. Race is saying only 14.5. Makes me wonder if I don't have something unlocked right now. I'm gonna have to look into that. Yeah, I just saw a maximum of 14.5 in race mode. So I'm in region 1, not really noticing it much. Region 2 is kicking in a little more, 3's more. Oh, you can actually see how much current's going back in, showing about 26 amps, 27 amps going back in. And 4 is slowing us down quite a bit. And I typically don't ride around with regen, but I love having the regen brake lever. Those things are super handy. Cruising back through Pittsburgh now, 37%, showing 24.6 miles on here. Definitely noticing it seems like it's getting better range right now because we were going on a steady uphill on the way out. Now we're going to the slight downhill. I don't know, guys. I have my doubts about hitting 40. Granted, I didn't really help the case much. There's multiple full throttle runs, but you know, that's how we're going to be riding these things, right? You know, when I first got this bike, I had some reservations about it. You know, I was worried it's going to be too much power. It's going to just be borderline dangerous. But now that I'm like getting used to riding it around, you can ride this bike just like you can ride any of them. So like I feel a lot more comfortable, which is nice. We're going down to LA in the next couple of days, so we're going to be riding around down in LA. So I had some people that are saying like this feels like a race bike. It's like, no, I don't think you don't have to be Jeremy McGrath to ride this bike. Granted, I wouldn't want to just throw any old Joe Schmo on here and put it in race mode and just tap him on the back and say you're good to go. No, you're going to have a little more restraint on these faster bikes, but I don't feel like this bike is absolutely insane or anything. This is a really fast bike, but it doesn't get up to speed by itself. You're in control. Range anxiety is a bit real right now. Whoa, that person's just sweeping all over the trail. Not a care in the world. I don't know what she said. Can't blame anyone else when you're not paying any attention, can you? That guy's on a gas dirt bike. You're not supposed to ride those out here, mister. Hey, mister! Hey, mister! You know, it's kind of crazy how fast you can do a 40-mile range test on a bike like this compared to an e-bike. Sometimes a 40-mile range test for me is like a good portion of the day. You do the math, and you can do a 40-mile range test on one of these bikes in an hour, hour and a half, if you're going fast enough. Probably going to be about 2 hours for us today, though. Not a bad way to spend the day, I might add. I actually enjoy doing range tests as long as the bike's not uncomfortable. 30%, 27.9 miles. Is 40 in the books for today's ride? Well, you'll just have to stick around and find out. I mean, I guess you could just skip to the end of the video and find out, but hey, what if I just put everything out of order to keep you on your toes? It's funny, here's remnants of that Tesla wreck from last week that I mentioned. He's still here. He's scared right now. Look at him. You can see the fear in his eyes. Well, if you're right here. Yeah. People are so stupid in this town. It's crazy. The guy was riding with one wheel folded up underneath the car down the wrong lane of traffic. And when I got back to pick him up, the Tesla was off the road, off in the ditch up the road. I don't know if they caught the driver or what. But anyways, we were up here at 30.2 miles on the tripometer. You know, how accurate that is, nobody knows at this point. 25%. I have noticed I've seen quite a few e-bikes out today. Hey, Lectric. I was on an electric folding bike. That battery he's got is going to have a ridiculous amount of range. There's a sketchy part of town here. And up here on the left, there's this tunnel system known as the shotgun tunnels. You'll see here where all those people are hanging out. They're actually going in there. Oh, cool. That tunnel actually goes for like at least a solid mile. One of these days I actually want to go in there. I haven't built up the nerve to do it yet. But sadly, you know, last year there was at one point where they found a burned up body right in front of that. Uh-oh. Hey guys. No, somebody came out here and just started dumping stuff, and then there's just garbage all over the place. I mean, this isn't the nicest area, but it's usually not this trashed out. This is a poor showing, guys, so apologies in advance. Antioch is usually better than this. Hey, you know, these kids all love dirt bikes. All the kids see the bikes and they get so excited. Around through Antioch gang zones, we got the ghetto birds out tonight. Maybe they're looking for us. 23%, 31.3 miles. I checked my Strava again. It was at 16.3 miles, and this is at 31.3. We resynced it exactly at 20, so I think putting the gear ratio on this to 8.3 makes this thing almost exactly accurate, which is good news for you guys, you Sigmas out there. 21%, I can tell you guys right now, definitely noticing a difference in using sport mode. Not even going to bother with race because it's definitely on reduced power at this point. 11% left going up this hill, and I'm noticing a big decrease in power. I mean, we're still moving along, but it's we're definitely in get back home territory in the battery. Yeah, I'll turn up the regen here a little bit. In a desperate attempt to get a little bit of range back in there. Doing 35.8 miles on the odometer, the tripometer. We'll get the official Strava tracking, obviously, when we're done. Luckily, we're only a couple miles away from our destination. You gotta remember, guys, this headlight's pulling about 20 watts as well, so that's gonna be cutting deep into the range, right? This bike doesn't like to ride with no hands. When I take my hands off on this bike, it wants to pull one way or the other. It's like I don't know what it is. I've never really felt a sensation. Not that you should be riding around with no hands, but this bike is not a fan of doing it. It doesn't want to stay going straight. It wants to lean one way or the other. I'm at full throttle now, and it's going downhill a little bit, and we're not wanting to go much past 35. 8% battery. This is the boring part of the range test, guys, when you just keep looping around until you eventually run the battery out. 6%, 5%, 4%. Still feels faster than most e-bikes I ride. 3%, 2%, 40 on the tripometer, 1%. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it. Came back at 1%. I didn't want to push this bad boy around the neighborhood any further than I had to. Showing 40.3 miles on the tripometer, but we discovered that is in fact not accurate. I reset this at 15. This is showing 25.3. So that's exactly. So setting the gear ratio to 8.3 made the speedometer in this almost exactly accurate. So according to his Strava, which was running the entire time, we got a range of about 38.5, and he stopped about 1 or 2 laps before me. So I got just about 39 miles, and the bike battery didn't completely die, but you know, it was as good as dead there. So I'm gonna have to go do a top speed run on a full charge on the bike. I don't really know how fast I got because the speedometer is off. I think I got about 63 miles an hour. He has an NAB battery on his if you guys are interested. It's a 57 amp hour. He's at 48%, so that thing's gonna have absolutely monstrous range. All in all, didn't hit the magical 40 number on the Altis, but I feel like you can hit 40 as long as you're not doing a couple of top speed runs like I did today. Overall, not too bad. I think that's acceptable range. Like I said, 40 is the gold standard, and we hit just about 40. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.